Hello and welcome back, and today I want to show you guys how to set up a QuTS Hero NAS up for the very first time. Now, I've done lots of videos like this where I have set up QNAP NASs, big and small, and shown you guys how to set up their software. Now, things are going to be largely the same, but there are a few tiny differences between setting up a QNAP NAS which arrives with Hero by default versus a normal ext4 QuTS NAS. And what I'm going to do is set this device up, the TS-h886, up from the ground up all the way to the desktop user interface via your browser. One, to show you guys exactly how it's done and give you some idea of what to expect when setting it up. And then afterwards, I've got some other videos coming soon where I'm going to be comparing QuTS Hero versus standard QuTS or QuTS ext4 versus ZFZ to show you the main core differences between them. And then after that, I'm going to be using that Synology just behind me, which is the DS-h886 Plus, and comparing these two software environments to show you what one can do what and where each one has their own advantages and disadvantages. So let's get started with our first video. Let's set this device up. And I'm using WD Ultrastar drives and Kingston SSDs today. So it's worth highlighting that this device, make sure you've got it all disconnected, no power inside during this bit. It doesn't make a vast amount of difference, but some of the components inside will immediately respond to the power being connected. So it's better when setting it up for the first time to have it disconnected from the network or the power. Now, depending on the number of drives you're going to install, this bit might be slightly different for you. The reason I'm installing 3 drives in today's video is because I'm going to be installing another 3 drives inside each of their respective QNAP and Synologies for the follow-up videos, but also in another video I'm going to show you guys about just how easy it is to change your storage and repair RAIDs on this for a video coming very, very soon. Now, in the case of installing the hard drives inside this device, the trays that are inside are the click and load ones, so no screwdriver required. You simply remove the side clips on each tray, take the drive, make sure it's SATA faced out, so where the SATA interface is there. Place the drive inside, like that. The holes should align up on the side, and just get the clips on either side and pop them on. Simple as that. Now you just need to repeat that with every single drive that you plan on installing inside the device. But it is worth highlighting, once again, that you don't need to fully populate these devices straight off the bat. You can get away with even a single hard drive. Just make sure you've got enough drives for the sake of RAID and redundancy. Otherwise, you may be in a situation where if a drive fails, because they are the second most frail thing in the system, then chances are you might lose all your data. So regardless of whether you fully populate the device or not, I would strongly recommend maintaining at least a RAID 1 or a RAID 5 at all times. Now, after these hard drives, I'm going to be installing the SSDs in the top 2 bays there. This system also has NVMe bays inside as well, but we won't be installing NVMe's today. We do have another video coming up soon about the triple tier storage system of this device, where we talk a lot more about the compression and deduplication as well. But I'm not going to be covering the NVMe's today. To get to those, just for future reference, on the rear of the device there are screws dotted around the edge of the chassis. You remove those, and inside there is a large black heatsink which you remove, and the NVMe's are inside there. But again, we'll save that for more detail in another video. There's our last hard drive going in there, into the last remaining bay. Slotted there. Each bay does have a lock on it, but you don't have to use them. That's up to you if you're going to use them. Now for the SATA SSDs, just remove them from the top like that. And once again, these trays do not require a screwdriver. As you can see here, if we bring that close to camera, we've got those little clips there for holding the drives in place. Once again, make sure the SATA interface of the 2.5-inch drives is at the back. Slide the drive over and it clips in like that. And there's the drive inside there, not coming out. You can slide that into the bay and repeat this procedure for the other tray. And again, these bays can be locked if necessary. It's worth highlighting again that these NVMe's or SATA SSDs that you install inside here do not need to be used just for caching or that tiered storage. They can even be used for the raw storage inside, with 6 gigabits per second SATA for each individual bay. So there we go. We've installed our 3 hard drives here and the 2 SSDs up here. Now I'm going to do this next bit off camera because it's all the way over there, but in short, make sure for the next step that you connect a connector in here, an RJ45 LAN cable into one of these ports. And again, there's 4 available, but I recommend going for port 1 just for convenience sake. And then after that, being connected to a switch or a router, as I've got at the top here, go ahead and connect your power cable that arrives with your device into this port. Once you've connected those, on the front of the device, the power button is located there. So click that button and power the device up. Boot the very first time for initialization normally takes around 2 to 3 minutes. And what I'm going to do now is get this connected over there and then switch over to a laptop screen to show you guys the rest of the setup. Let's move forward. Okay, so here we are on the desktop interface here of my laptop, and we're using Google Chrome, but it's worth highlighting that this can be done on pretty much any web browser. Now, to get to this point, it's recommended that you head over to QNAP's own website and download the tool QFinder. It's nice and simple. Either find the NAS that you've got it and go to the support area of that page, or you can simply just Google the term QFinder Pro and download it for your version of Windows or Mac or Ubuntu or anything like that. Just find that tool there. It's very straightforward, very easy to install, and once you have installed it, it will look a little something like this. It will scan the local area network for NASes that have been connected to a switch or router in that area, and as you can see here is a NAS that we've got connected here, that H886. So if you double click that line there, or you can right click it and then connect to it directly, you will be shown this page here. It will open in your web browser, and you can see that's my localized IP there, and this allows us to access the NAS and set it up for the very first time. Now, it is worth highlighting, this NAS doesn't necessarily need you to use ZFS. You can switch to the ext4 version of QuTS, but I would not recommend it on this system, as it would be a tremendous waste of missing out of ZFS. It may be a little bit more resource hungry, but it's certainly the better OS overall. So we're going to go ahead and select the smart installation of QuTS. Now you can go ahead and install the latest one automatically, and what this will do is install the latest version of QuTS Hero currently available on the market. As you can see here, this system has arrived with QuTS 4.5.1.1386, but there may be a newer version out there, and firmware updates from any NAS brand, not just QNAP, are regularly released. The reason being that as soon as they release a new firmware version, and this goes for any hardware platform from the PlayStation to your smart TV to a NAS and more, there will always be hackers and exploit hunters out there trying to break it, and therefore these NAS brands can only really stay one step ahead of the hackers. So consequently, there will always be regular firmware updates, and I always recommend you have the latest version. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and click Start to see if there is a newer version available of this firmware, and as we can see, there is, and my system is now going to download the newer version of QuTS Hero straight off the bat. Let's fast forward to the completion of the download and installation of that firmware that's automatically happening on our QuTS Hero enabled NAS. Now that the latest version of QNAP QuTS Hero has been downloaded, it's going to go ahead and install and restart the NAS, as you can see here from on screen. So what we're going to do is fast forward now to the completion of the restart of the initialization, and we're going to carry on with the latest version of the firmware. So now we can continue with the installation with the latest version of that firmware. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do is name your NAS. I'm just going to call this NAS what I know it to be, the H886. So after that, we're going to give it a password, and that's up to you what you choose to give the device for your password. And again, it can be absolutely anything you like. I'm going to go with just password for now, which I know a number of you might think of as fantastically insecure, but still nevertheless I'm going to do it just because it makes it easier for the video later on. I'm then going to click next, and from here it asks us to set our time. So from here you can go ahead and select the time zone you're in, or let it get synchronized automatically from pool.ntp. Then click next, and from here assign an IP address. Now this is a point that not everyone's going to take advantage of. DHCP, or a dynamic IP address, allows the address of the system to be fluid, and if you are going to be connecting to a device on a very fluid network where devices are connecting and reconnecting all the time, then a dynamic IP is probably going to be best suited to you. But if you are going to be creating permanent links to the NAS, be they for shared drives, for long-term backups, or if you're going to be editing over the likes of 10 GBE, then chances are a static IP is going to be preferable, because the last thing you need in those scenarios is the system moving around on the Ethernet. So I'm going to leave it as dynamic for now, but that gives you some idea which one you should go for. From here, it will ask you which file system you want to adopt, and by that it means which file system do you intend to connect to it with in order for it to be able to integrate data between those systems at once. Now again, I'm using a Windows system, but if you do have a mixed OS environment, you may wish to tick some of those boxes. And from here we can see the summary of the choices we have made, all ready to be implemented. Once we click apply, the system will now let us know that the drive data on the drives we've installed will be wiped. And after this, it will make our way into the QuTS Hero after these changes have been applied for us to start setting up our storage. Let's click yes. From here, the system is now going to be going through applying the settings that we've selected, and from there it will then refresh the page and boot directly into QuTS Hero for the TS-h886. And now those settings have been applied. Do bear in mind that the more storage bays that you've got and the larger the storage drives, it may take a fraction longer. So for now, I'm going to go into the NAS Management. Now bear in mind there are lots of different applications from QNAP that allow you to connect with your system via client apps on a Windows or Mac system, as well as mobile applications for iOS and Android. So although I am utilizing a Windows machine here in Google Chrome, there are lots of ways in which you can interact with the NAS. Case in point, after we've set this device up, you can right click the NAS here on screen and it allows you to set up mapped network drives if you choose, as well as the ability to create iSCSI LUN targets, something we're going to cover in our next video. But from here, on this user interface, go ahead and enter the login credentials that you created earlier when setting up the device for the first time. From here, you're now going to be logged into your NAS, the QuTS Hero user interface here. It's going to let you know that there is data and privacy stuff that you have to sign up to with this device, but that's going to be background data and not your actual core data, more user interface stuff and stuff in the background for user information. So from here, I'm just going to skip through those little steps. There's a lot of pop-ups here that will arrive on screen as soon as you set up for the first time. First off, there is that data collection agreement, which you can say no to if you choose to. Now, it is encouraged to go through these steps one by one for setting up different SCSI targets and snapshots and volumes and more, but I'm going to guide you through those early steps straight away here on screen. So first and foremost, as you can see, we have got two SSD SATAs that we installed in earlier on the Kingston, and those 3 hard drives there. The next thing we need to do is go down to the storage and snapshots, and this allows us to create our storage pool, and this is where our data is going to live. Head up to the top here and click storage pool, or click the plus icon in the middle of the screen. From here we set up our storage pool for the first time. Luckily, because this is a ZFS system, it means that we don't have to worry about creating a volume as well, because of ZFS file systems allow us to have the shared folders, LUNs and other areas of storage directly on the storage pool. This greatly assists performance, as well as RAID building and RAID rebuilding, resilvering and more. So if we click next, we can go ahead and see all of those drives we selected earlier. For now, we're going to install the 3 hard drives here, which allow us to create a RAID configuration. Now, there's lots of RAID options open to you, but with these 3 drives, we can go for a RAID 0, which combines them, but we have no level of data redundancy. On top of that, we have a RAID 5, which is traditionally accepted in 3 bays of storage to be kind of the go-to. And on the bottom there, we've also got triple mirror, and this allows us to have one drive that's actually 3 of the same data. So it's one drive with 2 other copies, all of which are being read and written to at the same time. For now, I'm going to go for a RAID 5 environment on this, and I'm going to enable the SSDs afterwards for caching. From here we click next, and it's going to tell us that the system is now going to use this as the primary storage pool, and this is going to be where applications are installed. If we like, we can create SSDs to be the primary storage pool, and therefore applications running on the system may run that little bit faster, but for now I'm going to go ahead and just stick with those hard drives. Now, it's also worth highlighting that we do have the option of over-provisioning. Now, over-provisioning is when an area of space on the hard drive or SSD array is reserved, and this is utilized for assisting the main core component of the system long term and in their operation. Primarily designed for SSDs, it can have its benefits moved elsewhere, but I'm going to not enable it for today's video. Next, you can choose whether you want to reserve an area of space that's dedicated towards snapshots. So if you're going to be running snapshots in the background which create images of all of your storage that are kept over a timeline which can then be reverted to, then you can make sure that there's always space of a certain percentage kept to one side on this particular storage pool for snapshots. I'm going to go ahead and leave that at 10%. Lastly, the alert threshold, and this will alert you when storage capacity is utilized at a certain point, and an alarm will go off on the system, as well as alerting admin users who have login credentials that the system is starting to run out of space. I'm going to disable it for this video, but it does change, and I recommend it if you are on data connections where a lot of data is being created rapidly. Then click next, and it will ask you to summarize the choices you've made. As you can see, I'm reserving an area of space that's going to be utilized there for snapshots, but the rest of the system is going to be kept as is. And for now, we click create, and the system is going to go ahead and create our storage pool. I click OK, and now our storage pool is going to be created on that ZFS volume. It's going to be quite quick, as ZFS file systems can build RAID 5s stupendously faster and synchronized faster than the likes of traditional ext4. And remember the benefits in RAID rebuilding and resilvering, such as the test that we performed on this particular NAS a few months ago here on the channel. So while it creates that storage pool in the background, we can go ahead and look into SSD cache acceleration. Now, cache acceleration will require that that main storage pool is completed, but once it's completed, we can head into the cache acceleration, click plus, and right now, as you can see, until it's ready, we can't create it. So let's give it a minute for this RAID 5 storage pool to be completed. We're already at 17%, and it shan't take much longer. Let's fast forward. Now that the storage pool is completed, we can see that preset folders have been created there in the default directory. Along with that, the options for compression and deduplication have been enabled. Now, before we look at some of those options, let's go ahead and head into the cache acceleration area. From here, we click plus, and it will allow the system to look at which SSDs are installed. There are our two SATA Kingston SSDs. Had we installed NVMe SSDs, they would have appeared here where they could have been utilized for that tiered storage. But for now, select both of those drives and then select the level of cache. Now, bear in mind that read-only cache and read and write cache have their own intrinsic benefits. Although utilized in a RAID 0 or RAID 1 fashion, these two different areas of cache and their benefits are pretty obvious, but the real benefits come down to that second one, read cache and synchronized I/O write cache. So go ahead and select that one with the two drives, but bear in mind that this will be a RAID 1 environment, so you'll only have one drive's worth of capacity during this setup, and this is the area of cache that will benefit your overall area of hard drive storage. Generally, for future proofing, I will generally state that you need around 10% of the overall storage capacity in hard drives in your SSDs for caching. Not so much for day one, but as your storage grows, the cache will grow too. Then click next. From here, you can see which of the drives here are going to be benefiting from that cache storage. But if you like, you can make sure that certain folders on the system, such as if you have personal folders or multimedia that you don't want to benefit from the SSD cache, you can select for them to not get it. But for now, I'm going to click enable on these folders of storage so they can all get the benefits of the SSD for caching. Next, you can change the I/O recognition for this area of caching, and depending on you, the user, it will help you to choose which. If you're a business user, random I/O is where you're going to see the most benefit. But for all kinds of file types, go for all I/O, because not only will you see a little bit of the benefit in virtualization and pre-made databases, but those benefits can also be found in file serving and multimedia streaming. So I'm going to go ahead and click for all. From here, you can see that the choices we've made have now been applied, and from here we click Create. It's now going to wipe those SSDs and start creating its own caching partitions, but it's worth bearing in mind that you won't be able to store or interact with these SSDs anymore. They will only be utilized by the core system itself to provide those high performance and high IOPS benefits to the larger if slower hard drive array. From here, it's now going to build our area of SSD caching, and the main areas of benefit are twofold. One, frequently accessed files such as those found on shared drives will be primarily the ones that are beneficial of that. But maybe you're using frequently accessed files internally for things like VMs or backups, or for certain applications. In those areas, the area of SSD cache will also have its intrinsic benefits passed over. While it builds that cache, let's take a moment to talk about compression and deduplication. Because this is a ZFS file system NAS and utilizes QuTS Hero, you have the ability for the system to inline compress data transmission. That is, when data is written to the NAS, the system will automatically compress it, and it will take up less space on the system. That inline compression and decompression is when the system will then read the compressed data directly off the NAS, and thereby improving read and write speeds with sufficient cache and utilizing less space. The amount of space that's taken up by these systems via compression can be detailed, and you can find out lots of information about how much space is being taken up at all times, with the results of data compression being visible very early on. You can find out just how much data is being saved in real time at any time. That little lightning symbol now next to the volume shows that the caching has now been bestowed upon these folders, and as you add folders moving forward, the caching benefits will be provided to you as you create shared folders. Deduplication is when you have files that live on multiple sources all being backed up to the NAS, or vice versa. So if you have VMs in multiple locations or backups from multiple client machines that have got the same OS, deduplication will find the files inside these folders in multiple locations, only save the one version of that file, but keep a record of where that same file exists on all the client devices. And there you have it. We've selected and created our RAID storage pool and area of SSD caching. Now, moving forward from here, the rest of the setup is going to be very unique to you and your own business. I would recommend going into FileStation and creating a shared folder. This shared folder is how you go about creating areas of mapped network drives. It's very easy to do, and when you open FileStation, go up to the folder with the plus symbol, select Shared Folder. From here, give the folder a name, 886 Share, for example. From here, select where it lives, the main storage pool we created. You can then say if you want to utilize thick or thin provisioning, which allows you to either have a preset amount of storage moving forward, or utilizing thick provisioning allow you to allocate a larger array of overall storage, which you can then upgrade to at a later date. As you can see here, we've set our values here with thick provisioning to the full amount available. If we click next, and you're in the background, the system will likely alert us that this one action is now going to consume the majority of the file quota space. We can also choose to encrypt this storage if we choose, and it will let us download an encryption key. I'm not going to enable it though for this section. From here, we can choose whether this folder will also reap the benefits of deduplication, compression, SSD caching, and fast folder cloning, as well as what kinds of compression we want to lose. You've also got write once, read many, or worm enabled if you choose here but I'm going to leave these options off for now during this setup. As you can see, any connected users on the system will be listed here, and you can say which of those users have got read-write access to the folder. In this case, we've only got the admin, but we can create users in the control panel section here and up here, allowing you to create one or multiple users very quickly for members of staff or clients or customers. Heading back to the creation wizard, we can go ahead and click next. We can then assign certain credentials and security to this folder. Do we want it to not be network visible? Do we want it to be read-only or write? Do we want it to have a network recycle bin enabled? Do we want to have other shared synchronized folder and other language-based sharing enabled too? Do we want it to be used for Time Machine? All of these options are readily available here. You can even choose whether you want guests to be able to access this folder overall. Click Next, double check that the options you've selected are correct, and then click Finish. It will now create this shared folder on the system. The benefits of a shared folder, of course, are that this is an area of storage on the NAS that becomes visible to those on the network with the right security credentials. As you can see, the shared folder is now created and it benefits from SSD caching. So all you need to do now on each of your client devices is head back into QVR Pro, seen earlier, right click, go to Map Network Drive. From here, it will open up a window that asks us to log into the NAS and add our credentials that we created earlier or the credentials of another active user, and then we can go ahead and map our network drive. So if we log in with the admin credentials, though yours will be different, from here it will list all of the folders that have been created, and as we see, 886 share that we just created is, click Map Network Drive, assign that drive a letter, in this case I'm going to go with the letter Q, click Finish, and now if we go into the My PC of my computer, we can see that we've now got access to the NAS in that shared folder. So if we want to go ahead and just dump a file inside this folder, so nice and quick, I'm just going to take an arbitrary photo. Let's go for just this picture of Plex. And if we paste it into that folder, if we go into the NAS and into File Station, go into that shared folder, there's the image right there. We can go ahead and open it up within the NAS window. It's that straightforward. You can even drag and drop files very, very easily into this window to pop files onto the NAS with lots of options available to you. And as you chuck files into the NAS, if we go back into our shared folder, we can see that those files are appearing. It's that easy. We've already talked about how to create users, we've created shared folders, and you can even create LUNs or SCSI targets directly from here that allow you to create other ways and means to interact with your NAS. I'm going to wrap things up here, but remember that there are other things you can do with your ZFS NAS that are very unique to QuTS Hero rather than QTS. And for those that want to create internet access to your NAS, head over to the My QNAP Cloud option here. Thanks for watching, and I will be following up this video with more setup guides and tips on QuTS Hero for the H886 as well as follow-up ZFS NASs coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. Click like if you've enjoyed the video, click subscribe to learn more, and visit the guys at span.com to get your NAS today. They're the NAS experts, they know what they're doing, and they can help you every step of the way. I will see you next time.